All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Camera one.
Count.
Ready, camera two.
And cue talent.
2, 1.
Roll for record.
There's been a big alarm over a clock. I'm John Phillips, and this is The Rundown. Unless you've been in a coma, you're probably familiar with the story of Ahmed Mohammed and his homemade clock. The tale we've been told goes like this. Ahmed, a 14-year-old student at MacArthur High School in Irving, Texas, built a digital clock all on his own because he's a genius. He took that clock to school, showed it to his teachers, who, just because he's a dark-skinned Muslim kid, freaked out and called the cops, who then handcuffed him and hauled him away for interrogation, leaving him and his family traumatized. Shocked by how racist and horrible America is, media outlets across the country told and retold his tale, even calling Ahmed, quote, the Muslim hero America's been waiting for. Google, NASA, MIT, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, and even President Obama all invited Ahmed to come visit them to heal the rift. But that's not the whole story, and it might not even be the real story. First to raise questions was electronics expert Thomas Talbot, who posted a lengthy examination of the clock Ahmed has supposedly invented on YouTube. Let's go ahead and take a look.
What this is a commercial alarm clock, as you would purchase in any department store and use at your bedside. And all that he did was remove the plastic case from the alarm clock. This is not an invention. This is not something that someone built or even assembled.
So let's get this straight. According to Talbot, Ahmed didn't invent this clock or even build it. He took it apart, an old Radio Shack clock, and reassembled it inside a metal box with a bunch of wires hanging out where it would occasionally beep. Police also say Ahmed was passive-aggressive when they asked him what he had and why, saying it was a clock but refusing to answer any other questions. We also learn Ahmed's father, Mohammed Mohammed, is a publicity stunt-loving activist against so-called Islamophobia who once ran for president in Sudan. Finally, the implicit criticism that Ahmed was only singled out because he's a dark-skinned Muslim kid instead of a white American kid is fundamentally false. American schools have been freaking out over far, far less threatening things than a pile of mysterious beeping electronics in a metal case. Anybody remember 7-year-old Josh Welch, who was kicked out of his elementary school for chewing a Pop-Tart into the shape of a gun? There it is. Scott Ott can't even do it that good, and he loves Pop-Tarts. Or 16-year-old Alex Stone, who was arrested, handcuffed, charged with disorderly conduct, and suspended for writing a story about hunting a dinosaur. There are many more examples, but I don't want to bore you with them because you've read them all in your local papers. So is all the clock alarm a tale of prejudice and racism against Muslims, or nothing but a scam? Joining me to talk about all the controversy is author and political satirist and Pop-Tart aficionado Scott Ott from his home studio in Dallas, Texas, and here in sunny Southern California, stand-up comic and PJTV contributor Stephen Cruiser. Cruiser, if anyone shows up to a school with a box filled with wires, something that looks like a bomb, I would expect the teachers to start asking questions and prying. And if someone's acting nervous about it, if someone is not being forthright about it, if they're being passive-aggressive, as this kid was, I do think you need to take an extra look at what's going on here. It's just the world we live in now, isn't it?
Oh, I think the teachers acted wholly responsibly. The school was being very responsible. I mean, they're charged with protecting our children while they're teaching them during the day. You know, you send them away for 8 hours and you hope for the best. I mean, I wouldn't. This thing looked like a bomb. I'm sorry, it looked like a bomb. And this whole thing reeks of. You know what I thought of right away? The first thing it reminded me of is when the atheists send their kids to school to refuse to say anything about God or at the Pledge of Allegiance. You know, it just reeked of the parent being a publicity stunt person from the beginning, and it turns out that's probably the case. But the teachers were very responsible here. It was what they should have done. It looked creepy, and this was designed to make them look bad. That's all it was designed to do, and because they knew that the press would run with it and make them look bad. And you know, when you've got the narrative on your side, that's all you need.
You know, Scott, there was a police shooting out here in Southern California a few years back. It was in Long Beach. A guy by the name of Douglas Zerby was blowing over a .4. He was standing in the courtyard of an apartment building, and he had a water nozzle that was shaped like a gun, and he was pointing at people in a combat sort of stance. The cops came to take a look at the situation, and he pointed the water nozzle at the cops. The cops shot him and killed him. I had the guy's sister on the radio show, and she said it was a bad kill because police officers should take a round or two before they fire until they know it's an absolute gun and it's loaded with bullets. If you read between the lines here on what the supporters of this kid are saying, it's almost as if the teachers should have just waited until the bomb exploded to know that it was a bomb for sure before they went ahead and horrified this kid by asking questions and taking a deeper look. Is that what teachers are expected to do nowadays because of political correctness?
Well, I think there's a simple intellectual test for this. And for those who are watching us right now who think that Ahmed Mohammed was targeted or singled out because of his faith or his skin color or anything like that, I posit this situation. Let's say the same kid brings this thing to school in his backpack. Nobody notices it. He puts it in the locker room at the gymnasium or in the cafeteria underneath one of the tables. Nobody notices it. He leaves, and somebody, a janitor, a teacher, a cafeteria lady, discovers that, what you're looking at there, under a table in the cafeteria. Does the school get evacuated or not? And the answer is it does. It gets evacuated, and nobody says, hey, we got to clear the school out because we just found a box full of wires and stuff, and it may be related to a Muslim kid. They take it out of there because it looks like a bomb. And by the way, President Obama should have tweeted out, instead of cool clock, Ahmed, and inviting him to the White House, he should have said, cool clock, Ahmed, how'd you like to come to the White House and disassemble our alarm clocks too?
You know what this reminds me of? Remember Balloon Boy?
Yeah.
Where the kid supposedly got into a homemade balloon and then was floating across the Texas plains.
Yes.
And they were hoping to save this kid. Turned out to be a total hoax, where the story that we were told initially had no truth to it at all. That's what this reminds me of.
The difference, though, is when that was exposed as a hoax, the press ran with it as a hoax. The press is still going with this stupid story. I wrote a thing Monday night, I believe, or a couple of nights ago about Reuters was talking about fearing a new wave of Islamophobia in the U.S., and they cited Ben Carson's remarks, and the second thing they said was this story, and they recounted this story as it was told by him and all of the people who are on his side right now, as if it's still fact, not mentioning any of the other stuff. So the press is still running with this because of the whole Islamophobia angle, and that's a narrative that they need to keep going. So no matter that it's been debunked, no matter that this guy wasn't even crafty enough to go to Radio Shack and put together one of those transistor boards that they used to have. He just took apart a clock, which I can do, and I have no skill whatsoever in that department.
I'm very skilled at breaking things.
Oh yeah, I could break the clock and put it somewhere.
Yeah.
But so that they're celebrating that they keep this going. They're going to keep this going. They'll be lying about this a year from now.
Talk to me about what happens in the next chapter of this story, Scott. This kid is likely, in my opinion, to get a full ride to MIT or some big university. He's going to be the boy that fell in the well. And then the teachers are going to be branded as racist and their careers are going to be ruined. Is that how you see this playing out too?
Well, what can I add to that? That certainly sounds like a reasonable supposition. You know, it's funny because from all outward appearances, he's a darling kid. I mean, he's got a pleasant smile, and he waves and gives the peace sign and, you know, haltingly speaks to the Good Morning America crew. But, you know, what I think is what Cruiser suggested early on. It seems almost as if this kid is being used by his family, or perhaps by people who are connected with his family, that this certainly looks like a hoax bomb provocation. He couldn't have possibly thought that he could take something like that to school and then, you know, be evasive about when people asked him about it and not stir up some trouble. Interestingly enough, though, the people of Irving, Texas, you know, the Hicks out here in Texas, I happened to go to church in Irving, Texas on Sunday morning. This Sunday, I don't always go there, but this Sunday I went to worship in Irving, not realizing that that's where the kid was from. And early in the service, during the prayer time, the pastor was praying that the people of Irving would, as the national spotlight was upon them, would continue to behave in a gracious manner and show love for people of all faiths, and just essentially behave as godly people. The people of Irving are salt of the earth people. They meant no harm to this kid. And in fact, the kid, what did it take? It was like his 6th teacher before somebody said anything about it. My only complaint in this whole situation with MacArthur High School is, why didn't the first person who saw that say, hey, what is that? We got to get it out of here.
Last question before we go. What happens to Steven Cruiser if Steven Cruiser is walking through a TSA checkpoint at LAX with that clock assembled exactly as we've seen it?
I'm going to be late for work that day because I will be detained for quite a while.
You will get a generous cavity search, my brother.
Yes.
All right, so now it's your turn. What do you think? Was this a big scam? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm John Phillips. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.